2019, new year, and given all of that, I thought I would revisit a subject that I may have talked about before, but I feel it's time for another re-ranking. As many of you who've been around this channel might know, since 2016 I became a comic book geek. I'd loved comic book stuff before, like I'd watched the comic book style TV shows and movies, but I don't really be one myself. But since 2016 I've managed to amass quite a collection, and I'm rather proud of it. So I thought today I would rank my top 10 DC graphic novels that I think people should read. I might do a Marvel one later, but yeah, these are 10 DC graphic novels that I personally have collected that I think other people should too. I know people are going to have better lists or better graphic novels, but yeah, this is my top 10 DC graphic novels. Starting off the list is my most recent one, the first of three DC Rebirth storylines I have, Trinity Better Together. This particular storyline sees Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince go to the Kent farm to catch up with Clark and his family. Only they get wrapped up in a plot involving Poison Ivy, who is trying to do some things to get back a child that she kind of loved for. However, the entire thing turns out to be a plot by the villain Mongol to escape to our reality to cause chaos. Yeah, and it provides a good kind of look through at each member of the Trinity and sees them kind of come to terms with stuff about them. Kind of Clark coming to terms with how his father raised him, Batman coming to realise how his parents' death wasn't his fault, and Diana Prince coming to recognise how much of a family she truly has in the Trinity. I think it's a good read-through. My number 9 goes to, one of two New 52 storylines on my list, The Flash Out of Time. If you're a person who watches the CW Flash series, this one is a pretty good one to go read if you're a fan of that. It's probably the closest you can really get to an adaptation of The Flash Season 3. I mean, it's not especially stated that the villain is Savitar, but it's close enough in this version, as Barry Allen, in the future, tries to travel back in time to go and stop some of the mistakes he's made, and in the process comes into conflict with his younger self. So yeah, it's a good read-through, kind of seeing two different ideologies, someone who wants to do good and somebody who wants to kind of undo all the bad that he's done. But you can understand where both are coming from, even if one of them is technically the bad guy. Down one place at number 8 is the other New 52 number on my list, Justice League Origin. You can argue that there are better Justice League stories out there, and yeah, maybe you're right, but this one for me, it's a good one if you're a fan of the DCEU. This one is pretty close to what we eventually got with the 2017 Justice League movie. I think it's a fairly good one to read through. Yeah, it kind of shows the formation of the League, them coming together. The only real difference between this and the movie is that this has Green Lantern as an active member of the team, whereas the film didn't. They hinted at it, but no. But yeah, I feel it's a good one. I mean, you get to see him go up against the Parademons and Steppenwolf, and you also get a kind of brief look at Darkseid. So yeah, if you're a fan of the DCEU, definitely check it out. Down one place at number 7 is, the second one in my collection of the Rebirth storyline, Green Arrow, The Death and Life of Oliver Queen. As I said, with Flash Out of Time, that's a good one to read if you're a fan of the CW Flash show. However, this one I feel is the closest I've come to a comic adaptation of the CW's Arrow. I mean, I did read the volume 1 of the official Arrow comic, and I did also get the first one of the New 52 Green Arrow, The Midas Touch. However, this to me felt like the closest thing to Arrow that I had seen. It kind of shows Oliver Queen's early days, and you also get to see his building up his relationship with Black Canary. You also see the origins of John Diggle, which is, I know by this point Arrow was already in full effect, so they were properly introducing John Diggle into the proper DC Comics universe, and I think it's done fairly well here. You also get to see a nice relationship with his sister, who isn't quite the same as Speedy in the show, but yeah, I'd say pretty good. Down one place at number 6, the first of the kind of big storylines that I have here, Batman Hush. This particular famous storyline sees Batman encountering a new villain, Hush, who has quite a dark past and one that's interweaving with Bruce Wayne. And I do feel it's a rather good one. It's especially a good one looking at Batman's psyche, and especially a good one looking at his early childhood. Yeah, it's a good story to read, and the ultimate reveal of who Hush is. I mean, it's sad, but then it's also rather dark. So, yeah. I mean, Batman, looking at my collection, I guess Batman must be my favourite DC character, as he's the one I've probably got the most of. But yeah, Batman Hush, it's a good story to read. And, speaking of which, up one place at number 5, you've had Hush, now technically the unofficial follow-up of it, Batman Under the Red Hood. Now, Hush and Under the Red Hood aren't necessarily tied together, but it is a pretty good one. I mean, you pretty much know the story by now. Batman encounters a mysterious new vigilante in Gotham known as the Red Hood, and when he finally discovers who the Red Hood actually is, it's quite a blow and brings up one of his greatest failures from his past. Which, yeah, I mean, it's a storyline that could have crashed and burned, but they managed to do it fairly well. And so, yeah, I mean, I won't spoil for anyone who doesn't know who the Red Hood actually is, but if you know Batman's history, it's a fairly famous storyline. So, yeah, if you haven't read it through, I'd say give it a go. Once again, 3 loads of Batman in a row. My number 4 spot goes to Batman The Long Halloween. This one is one of my later on purchases, but having read it through, I can see why this one's one of the classics. It tells a particularly famous storyline of Batman, Jim Gordon, and Harvey Dent attempting to track down a killer who seems to kill or attack mob bosses around the holidays. And it's also a fairly tragic look at the life of Harvey Dent and how he ultimately became the villain that everyone knows him for. So, yeah, I mean, it's a fairly powerful storyline, and one also that's quite famous. I mean, when I sat through, I read it through, and I thought, yeah, blimey, this is a classic. And I can see why. I'd say definitely check out The Long Halloween if you have a chance. Anyway, my number 3 spot goes to another one of my most recent acquisitions, Blackest Night. Okay, this one mainly focuses around Green Lantern, but I do think this is a truly great storyline. I mean, it builds upon years of stuff and ultimately comes up pretty good, as it sees Green Lantern and a number of figures within the DC universe having to deal with the fact that the dead are rising from their graves, but by a villain named Black Hand. They ultimately have to find a way to stop the resurrected being resurrected and make sure the dead stay dead, as no matter how hard it's going to be. And you do get a good sense of it. I mean, it's a very well told story. I mean, when they ultimately, well, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it. But it's got some great moments in there. I mean, you've got Barry Allen as the Blue Lantern. That's a pretty good point. And yeah, I'd say it's a fairly good story. Anyway, up one spot from Blackest Nights. I mean, technically this did start off New 52, but I'll leave you a point on that. Flashpoint. This is one of the earliest graphic novels that I personally got when I went into collecting graphic novels, and yeah, I can definitely see why this one is considered a classic. I mean, if you're looking for something to compare to the CW's version of it, this probably won't give you what you want, but yeah, it's a classic story of what can be done, what shouldn't be done. And I think as the movie version of it said, have the courage to change the things you can, and have the knowledge to know what you can't change, and have the wisdom to know the difference. So yeah, I do think Flashpoint is one of the greats. But it's not my number 1. My number 1, the final rebirth story on my list, Batman, The War of Jokes and Riddles. frankly, this one for me is just brilliant. I mean, it tells a story of when the Riddler and the Joker both went to war. It's a little bit confusing as to why they went to war, but it's done pretty well, and it's kind of told through the story of Bruce Wayne. It's still in his early days, but then trying to work things out as Batman while also trying to wrap his head around his feelings for Selina Kyle. And I do feel that for me is my number one. It's a very well told story. Well, there you go. My top 10 DC graphic novels. I might do a Marvel one later, but till then, see ya.